All right, so format is basically going to be this. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and then we will start answering that question, and then tangent off wildly into whatever we want to talk about. So, questions? Anyone? Anything that you guys want to ask about? Anything at all? Oh, yeah.
Am I allowed to be negative?
No. By the way, I am just actually going to disagree with whatever you say, no matter how sensible. It'll be great. All right. So, questions from the audience. I should have specified. Rules are important. Yes?
Yeah, this is for Andreas. You just released free DLC for your game Among the Sleep.
Yep.
How was the decision to go for a free model instead of doing as many other game studios would have done and said, you know, cost 50 kronor or 100 kronor?
It has a really easy answer, and it's what we promised during the Kickstarter.
Okay, yeah.
It was stretch goal, basically, and something we underpriced big time.
Which is really, I mean, if any of you guys are doing Kickstarters, one of the biggest things to understand with your Kickstarter, because I've crowdfunded a number of things, is to understand what exactly you were giving away for the amount of money you're giving it away, because it's very easy to understand.
And it's always going to be more work.
Yes, yes. And even, I mean, Kickstarter is a full-time job for several people. Like, if you guys are planning to come out of here and start out a company, just expect that like 2 to 3 months of 2 people's lives are just dedicated to that Kickstarter, and just responding to things, fulfilling all the things you say, doing things like giving t-shirts. T-shirts are going to kill you. Don't ever, ever, ever do t-shirts. But just be prepared for how much work Kickstarter is. All right, other questions or thoughts? Nothing. Nobody wants to know. They already know it all.
Well, can I just jump in on the Kickstarter thing?
Yeah.
As well? I mean, everything you're saying is absolutely right. I think one of the great things that you will learn during a Kickstarter, or actually before you even do the Kickstarter, is project scheduling, project management. Getting an accurate project schedule is key, because it's a lot harder to turn around to the Kickstarter people when you've made your target. Let's assume you've made your target and say, actually, we need more money because we didn't plan this out properly. So I see a lot of them fail where they've had to then come back and do a second offering, and people are like, well, hang on, where all the goodwill that they had for me, I'm interested in your game, it's just evaporated. Well, what did you spend that last lot of money on? You said you were going to do it, you better make sure that you can do it.
Just a question, so we just announced basically that we're going to do the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Next year?
February.
Yeah.
Around.
Yeah. So as you got a funded Kickstarter, and I believe you got something from NFI after that.
Yeah.
Did you get any reactions to that? Because, hey, you got money.
Well, no, not really, because the NFI money is not as visible as the Kickstarter outside of like the Norwegian games industry. So it's and I think like the rest. The people that's not gonna understand this is the gamers, the people in the games industry, and they will understand why you need more money, and they are the one who knows about that money.
And you just explained that you had to ask less money from them because you had some money in other places, right? This is to finish development, make the money you asked from them. I saw other hands. I saw a hand right there.
I was wondering if your don't do t-shirts applies to all print, or is it just clothes?
So, t-shirt, the real reason is shipping on t-shirts is going to kill you, and if you especially are appealing to anybody internationally, if you have to ship t-shirts to the US, you're just losing money on every t-shirt you actually sell during your Kickstarter. And things like, if you're doing art prints, that's a lot easier. It's still a pain in the neck. You sell 5,000 art prints, and somebody has to put 5,000 things right. You're going to have somebody spend a month after your Kickstarter is done doing nothing but fulfillment, right? Just doing nothing but making sure all those get sent out. And make sure you factor in shipping, even in that case, to how much you're charging for those.
Like one of the key things we were warned about, including in the Kickstarter rewards, were posters. Because posters are sent, will shipped in a circular, pretty long container, and the container costs a lot to send. And people don't realize that until they have that container and move to
I think there's an interesting movement in Kickstarter. When it started, it kind of hit that zeitgeist, and you had all of the Double Fine people doing it, and Schaefer's line, and all of the big names came out and made these massive successes, and people were like, wow, this is so cool, because it was the nice new thing. I've kickstarted a few things, not contributed to Kickstarters and a few things. But I think there was a bubble, and I think it is bursting. I think it is in the process of bursting. There have been a couple of proper high-profile failures, which really haven't helped the cause at all. But the thing is that a lot of people immediately saw it as finally a way that we don't need publishers, this is the great white hope. And it's not, it's just another alternative model, another way of doing it.
And I think that's, I think it's really important to think about it that way. I think that you're not raising for a $2 million game any longer. That is just not happening on Kickstarter. I have seen plenty of successes at the $50,000
Yeah.
level.
The smaller the asking value, the more likely you are to succeed. And as soon as you pass the watershed of have you succeeded or failed, if it's a small amount, then you will massively over-succeed, which is brilliant.
And make sure you're asking for the amount that you can actually deliver on. But I had 4 groups of ex-students of mine over the summer before I came out here ask for between 30 and 50,000, and they were all able to hit that target. But they had to work a lot harder than people originally did. They had to have demos by the time, they were asking for the money to finish the project, right? They had to have demos that really sold the game that people could download from the outset. They had to have tons of art assets. They had to have a polished video that they were talking about. They didn't just go on cam and wing it, right? They had to have a very polished. So throughout it, it was a much bigger production too, and you have to be further along.
I think the later you can come to Kickstarter as well, the better. As with any pitch, if you're standing up and you're doing a pitch in front of people, and you want them to like you want their money, you've got to be able to speak to them on a level that they understand that they can relate to. And you may have this fantastic idea for what this epic thing is in your head, and it's going to be brilliant. And you know what? We've even got this guy, and he's done some amazing concept art, and you can see, look how nice it's going to be. But if they don't know, if they're just sitting there going, what's it going to actually be like? How do I play it? Show is always better than tell. Always, always, always. Whether you're pitching for funding, whether you're just pitching for somebody to review your game, it's a lot better to go, look, here's the actual finished thing. Review this, play this, and then you'll know if you like it or not. So yeah, the later you can come to the Kickstarter, the better.
And that it's an exact experience from our Kickstarter, because we kind of had a little struggle like in the middle of the Kickstarter. And we started researching what made the highest peaks in other Kickstarters. What kind of action could we do to make this like just tip over? And everywhere we looked was a playable demo.
Yeah, it always will be. Yeah. The Kickstarter funding growth. Did you have a similar thing? So you get a spike at the start when it's a new thing, then it tails off and you get nothing, and then it's like, oh, only a couple of days to go, then it goes up again.
Yeah.
So the middle bit, it can be really, really, you're sitting there going, oh, we're really not going to make this. And all of the tracking software is saying, no, you're going to miss, you're going to miss, you're going to miss.
The tracking software is always useless.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The one last thing I would say on Kickstarter is do the maths. And this isn't just about, this is how much our game is going to cost. Don't forget that Kickstarter take a percentage. It's how they make their money. So just because you've asked for 50,000, your game better not cost 50,000 to make.
And I don't know how the tax laws here are, but taxes on Kickstarter raising, for some of the ways that it falls in U.S. tax law, it's pricey, right? It's like 20+% of our Kickstarter, and then another 7% for the Rocket Hub itself. So at that point, you're losing more than a fourth of what you're actually raising. All right, go for it.
Yeah. Well, speaking about Kickstarter bursting as a bubble, what is the new gatekeepers? This is purely speculation, but what is the new platform for releasing and
I think
reaching people?
I don't think there's any one thing. I think it's a combination of things. It's very good to have one, say, crowdfunded thing, but then you need the other investments as well. Another fantastic model, if you can pull it off, is Robert Space Industries. I mean, they massively overpromise on this thing that a lot of people are getting very, very excited about. They cannot hope to make that game. That game is never going to be as good as the game everyone thinks it is inside their own head. But you know what? It's fine because they've got this whole other revenue for selling virtual spaceships. As long as they never call the game 1.0 and it never gets released, they can just keep making money and keep everyone excited about the promise of how amazing this game is. Never
That's how we agree, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the funny thing is that actually is the Minecraft model, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about how long it took them to get to 1.0. They were a multi-million dollar company doing revenue before they actually had to ever live up. I mean, to the promise that people sort of bought in the first place.
How early did people buy it? So, right, I'm making an assumption that everybody here has bought Minecraft in one form or another.
Bought may be a strong term for some sort of quick college students, but
Yeah. But how much did everyone pay? At what point did you go in? Because he had the interesting tier thing where it would reward early adopters by being cheaper, and then I think the final phase was like $30, something like that, wasn't it? It started off at like $10, and then it went up like in $5 or $10 increments, didn't it?
Yeah.
So how much was the sort of on average? How many people paid like $10? So when it first you could actually buy it, so that's quite a few. How many paid 20? And how many waited until it was actually released? And then, well, I need to get in on this thing. So yeah, so it did absolutely the lion's share of it before release.
well, I'm really sad the Microsoft guys aren't still here, so somebody could raise their hand. And
2.5 billion. That's where you can get it.
other questions? Right there.
Like just in general, what are your opinions on early access? Do you think it's a good model to go for? Or
So I'm gonna let you guys start because if you've watched, you've probably already heard my rant on early access.
I'd be very interested to have a crack and see if it's the same as yours.
Go for it.
Well, again, it's another option, isn't it? It's another option. But I think if you're going to go the early access route, you have to be prepared to democratize your design a little. Simply because you're not going to be able to make the game that you want to make because people have opted in for this early access, they feel they now have ownership over it. And you're not just presenting them a fait accompli. So you have to listen to them. And if suddenly some of them start saying, oh, we need it to do this and we need it to do that, regardless of your thoughts on it, you've got to give that serious consideration. So I think that I would be worried by that, but then I'm a bit of a control freak.
So, for those of you who haven't heard, my basic thoughts are there are serious issues with your marketing when you do early access. Your early adopters are going to be the people who are going to spread the word about your game the most, right? They're the people who are most excited about your game. But they get in an early state, which is probably not pretty good, you're going to lose them. And so instead of having any one critical mass, instead of having launch day where you get this huge spike and everybody's talking about your game, you're dribbling that out across months and months. And that's actually pretty damaging. And then you have all those people who may have really liked your game, who go into your game and play it, and it's not in a good state. And then months later when it actually comes out, the friend asks them, and they're like, hey, Playday wasn't very good. No matter if it's really actually good by that point. So be aware. I actually think that early access today, you pretty much have to basically be ready to launch, and I think it's better for some of the free-play games.
I'd say it's analogous to soft launch in the mobile space. And the only reason to soft launch is because you know that the game's not quite ready, it's nearly ready, you just want to get people's opinions on it's a giant focus test, essentially. And if you treat early access like that, I think you'll do okay.
I actually thought there was one really interesting model that I've seen recently that I have no idea whether or not it's actually good, but I thought it was interesting. Sony decided that they need a larger group of testers for Landmark and EQ Next. But they only want people who are really dedicated testers. They don't want to blow their audience on this. So they were actually going to charge like $150 for early access and tell everyone on the early access screen that this will be coming down to $50 or less when it releases. So instead of going the notch way and going up, they were going to try and exclude as many people and only get that hardcore and get them really invested and try and work with that.
That's what we are doing with Nuclear Throne as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had 3 or 4 games on early access now, and actually all of them have like kind of become also like hits because of early access. So I'm kind of jaded about it. But there's like some problem areas. But like with Nuclear Throne, we have it for $13, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When we release, it's going to be $12, or like $12.99, $11.99. So it's only like $1 down, but that actually. That $1 seems to be like a barrier.
Yeah.
Like people are like, it's going to be like $1 cheaper.
Dude, seriously. Yeah, I could buy like half a Snickers bar for that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Not
like,
anymore.
It's like one peanut. But yeah, like problems with early access, like you said, is like if you have something there and you change it, there's going to be so many people pissed about that change, even though it'd be better for the game. It's weird.
And has this been your experience? One of the things I've seen some developers I talk to struggle with in early access is that now all of a sudden they have to be patching regularly. Otherwise, their audience, and it's sort of more expensive, rather than be able to do their development in a logical structure, right? They have to make sure they have a patch.
You're constantly firefighting, essentially.
Yeah. Especially with Nuclear Throne, where you have like every week
Right.
an update. So that kind of, if you have like kind of like bigger problem areas, we can't like just go into them. We have to do them like in segments, and that kind of makes stuff hard. Like let's say for me doing sounds, and I want to implement like 3D audio, big better implementation stuff. I can't really do it in like one big push.
Right.
It has to be like, then see, maybe then like do separate builds. This is the build for doing some stuff, this is the build for doing that, and then we kind of patch the builds together to the big build, and it's really shady. Prone to errors and stuff. But
Now this is being recorded, right? This is probably not something you want your early access actual buyers to be seeing.
no, but there's a thing. There's no thing. But then again, there's a like bonus for this, because we also have a deal with Twitch, where we live stream the development 2 times a week.
Right.
Like it might be the coder, like in-game artist, me, or the composer, like streaming while we actually create stuff for the game.
Blows my mind that people want to watch people code.
It does, but it's like 500,000 viewers. It's crazy, yeah. You guys. That's cool. But the cool thing about there's also a cool thing about the patching once a week with the live streams, because people see their input kind of being put in the game like right away, pretty much. Like on first day, they're like, could you try this and this thing? And if it's a cool idea, we might do it, and then it ends up in the patch, and they're like, it's cool, or it doesn't work, or so and so and so. But they kind of see like their own feedback right away, like in the game, and they see that it worked or not, and so on and so on. So there's also a plus to it.
So, I mean, I think to answer the question, just be aware of what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Like there are ways to do it and do it well, like any of the other things, but it's not just, I'm going to put out my game early, get some extra money, and let people give me feedback, right? It's not as simple as that. It's not just a win. If you're going to do it right. Other questions, thoughts? In the back.
About scoping of games, usually like game developers usually overscope their games, right? So trying to scope games down, how would you guys go about that?
So I have my answer, but I've talked a lot.
Yeah, I think we have a very general rule that like probably it should take about 3 times the amount you think it's going to take. That's our general rule.
Yeah.
Like that's a very simple rule, but I think that applies to a lot of game developers. I think that does. So start there. So like if you think it takes 2 months, it's probably going to take 6. So plan for that ahead. Yeah.
I'm proud. After closing in on a decade here, I've gotten it down to 1.5 times.
But we used to double it, and then we never shipped anything on time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think in Norway you guys have to get down to less than 3 times.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I think you actually have to do. And if there's efficiency, we can manage you. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree.
Again, you've got an advantage if you know, if you've reached a sort of critical mass where, well, we've cut this feature, and we've cut that feature, and we've cut the other feature, then you know, but we want to make a sequel. And if you know there's always that possibility that, yeah, we'll save it for the sequel, that kind of takes the sting off. Because it's always really, really hard. But this would be great if suddenly we had this flamethrower where the flames stick to things. Yeah, but we can't put that in. Okay, well, we'll keep that for the sequel. And then the idea hasn't completely gone away. It's just, yeah. We haven't wasted anything, technically. It just hasn't come out yet. So I think that kind of, it just takes the edge off more than anything. But yeah, it is always, I would say it's always advisable to think smaller rather than bigger and spend more of the time polishing it. I think the problem a lot of developers make for themselves is they'll have this amount of time and they need to release here. So what they'll do is they'll be working on the game until here. Whereas in an ideal world, what you'll do is you'll work up to the halfway mark, double it, finish the game, and then spend this time just going over it, playing it again, and polishing it, and sanding it, and refining it, and making it the best it can be. That never happens. But the farther apart you can make those two things, the better your game will be, I guarantee you.
And just remember, 90 minutes of awesome is always going to be better than 8 hours of okay, like 100% of the time. When I'm doing this, I usually try and find out what is the core game that I can ship, right? What is the thing, and then I think about other design elements that won't affect the development of that core game, and then I build that core game, I figure get that as small as possible, build it out, and then I start introducing these other elements, right? I start making things that aren't actually going to affect, that I can layer on, but if I don't add them, you as a player on the other side are never going to know, right?
They're purely additive.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing is, when you're looking at your list of things to add to the game, you're looking for most bang for your buck. You will have a large list of things that will make the game better. So the way to sort that list is time in to value out for the end player, right? Will adding a 27th new gun do more to your game, or will actually implementing checkpoints in your game do more, right? And then make that decision, right?
I think it ends up with discipline. Right? Just being able to have the discipline of saying no, and that's probably something you have to experience. But
That's so
it's-
hard. That's what's
really
the
hard.
hardest thing.
But it's
Because you always want to put more in. You want it. It would be so much better if we just run out of time or money or.
and we've done that too many times with the but we have kind of ended up with a good solution, I guess, maybe. But we say instead of the sequel, because we hate sequels, we say we'll save it for polish, or polish, and
And
yeah.
yeah, no.
What we did with Through the Woods, for instance, is, okay, so like I talked about earlier, set a really strict framework for things you can do and things you can't do. So further on, if it doesn't work, we have to go back to it, of course. But okay, so we have this really narrative-driven game, so we have the arc, but at the same time, when we start developing, we go into the middle, like to the core thing. So if everything all, basically if the shit hits the fan, then we can release it with the core game.
Yeah, I think incidentally, just as a side note, I think that's where your pitch fell down, is because you started at the beginning and nothing happens at the beginning. And by the time we got to there, we'd run out of time. Whereas if you'd have given us the highlight reel, we might have gone, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Same sort of analogy.
Technical.
Yeah, technical problem.
One other thing to add is just that my job is actually very often just coming in and saying no. And so I have learned that when I'm working on something, I'm often too close to it. So I will grab a designer or two who I really respect, and we'll go out to dinner late at night, and I'll lay out the game, lay out the problem, and ask them what they think of these decisions, right? If I can't prioritize things, talk to somebody outside the project. Talk to somebody, don't take their opinion, right? But use that as a data point. Use that as a way to formulate your own understanding, your own decision. Other questions? Yeah, over there.
Yeah, in your opinion, what is the absolute best indie developer marketing?
We're going to start from the left and work right.
Rami. Yep, same monster. Best? Oh, that's
Best indie market.
good game.
Good start.
I mean,
Like,
best.
what's the best way to like show your game off?
Events. Like, definitely events.
yeah, show it at expos.
As an indie, the one thing you've really got to rely on is, well, so there's the fact that everyone's kind of on your side by default because you're the little guy and everyone loves to root for the little guy. So it is absolutely critical that when it happens, you make the most of word of mouth. Unfortunately, word of mouth is only a successful tool when you've reached a critical mass of mouths. And for the longest time, you'll be down here where these are all really enthusiastically telling each other about the thing, and you need to get that to reach a large base, and then it will kick off. The only reason Minecraft was successful is because everyone kind of played it and went, hey, have you tried this? Hey, have you tried this? And it reached the critical mass and then went crazy. Yeah, but it didn't do it before. It had no marketing before. Really, did it?
Yeah,
But there's no, if there was a magical formula for doing that, I'd be wearing something else. I'd be driving something else. And, you know, I may not even recognise you little people, and this would be fantastic. Yeah, so I don't think there is one particular magic formula for it.
Then again, like these days, we guys have YouTube and YouTube players,
Yeah.
Let's Players, and that's pretty much the modern equivalent of TV. And if you get into YouTube players, they are pretty much the TV channels showing your game for like billions of people around the world.
Yeah.
And this is one that I was going to go to. I mean, I think that Let's Players are huge, and a lot of these guys are going to feel great that you just gave them an early access key, right? Like, especially if it's not even on early access, right? They're going to feel, oh, you recognize me, that's awesome, these developers. Same thing with Twitch streamers. Twitch streamers are also another good place, and things like Minecraft, things like spin tires, right? If your game has something that also appeals to that can be an audience to watch thing rather than just something that is only engaging to the player themselves, you'll get more of those Let's Players. How you do that, I wouldn't build for that, but it is something to consider as you're thinking about your design. But yeah, YouTubers and Let's Players, huge.
I tell you what we found, so again, shortly after the release of Super Lift Quest, we then had to spend, and we are still spending, a large amount of time fielding emails from just completely random people saying, hey, we want to monetize your app, and how we can drive user acquisition, and we can do all. And the thing that really kind of bugged me, other than just this volume of spam that we were getting, is they hadn't even done their research. So a lot of them were just firing this stuff out. When we write back saying, no, we're premium, we don't need to worry about retention or stuff. Acquisition, absolutely, we need to put the word of mouth out. But we don't need to worry about monetization or retention because we're premium. And you haven't even looked at that. Something has just flagged up on yours, hey, a new app has been released. And because 95% of all apps are freemium, they just immediately assume that, oh right, you must need this. And then essentially you start looking at some of their portfolios and stuff they offer, and it's, if we give them a few $1,000s, they will give us so many positive reviews on the App Store.
So, by the way, I happen
We
to
try and not veer towards the hashtag that I can feel is kind of veering towards, by the way.
no, actually, I was actually just going to talk about Russian criminal conglomerates, and realized we're being televised. Yeah, for a long time I've known, I knew several firms that one of the ways they laundered money for the Russian mob was through this strange system of you would pay them and they would get you 10,000 upvotes on iTunes or on Facebook or whatever. But I wanted to also go to talk to you guys because you had a slightly different experience with Let's Players, yeah? Like when your game was streamed by some major people, what happened in terms of your overall sales numbers and that sort of thing?
Well, our major peaks in sales or sales numbers comes from the big sales in Steam. You have the curve which goes like the launch, and then you have next sale, and next sale, and next sale. And the thing is, like, we had PewDiePie play our game, and that's 4 videos, I think. 2 or 3 million people view all of those, and it doesn't even show up on the scale.
That was another quite recent. He was playing. He also played your Kickstarter demo, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did that impact things at all?
I would say it had an impact. I don't know. I think the demo had more impact.
Yeah, probably. Because there was just a case now where PewDiePie played this game on Kickstarter called Stowaway, which they're basically just asking for £15,000 pounds, and 2 million viewers on this video, and the game hasn't even faced £800. So, and he basically said himself that his fan base is a lot younger. They're not that into horror games. They actually just like to watch him play horror games, and they don't have the disposable economy to actually buy things.
But the thing with Let's Players, I think, is that it fits a certain type of games
Yeah.
to like drive that into sales again. Doing like Let's Plays of narrative games, I don't think that might be too good of Let's Players, because it's an experience you just live through that person, and you don't want to. But if you like Let's Play Minecraft, it shows you just all the possibilities, and you just want to try it.
I think the Minecraft is a good example for something that gives you that level of creativity. So I think big examples are Minecraft, stuff like Little Big Planet, where you are presented with, here's a blank canvas, go and make something. Most people would go, some people will go, I could do this, or that, or the other. Yeah. But both of those types of people won't make a damn thing, because they get this sort of creative paralysis. Whereas watching somebody else make something in Minecraft, oh, I can do that. Oh, that's a really good idea. What? But I want to do that, but I want to have a tower over here. Or watching someone do it in Little Big Planet. Oh, he's got a switch that does this. I wonder if I could build that switch in a slightly different way. It gives you, again, a constraint, a starting point, a seed of an idea. And it's a lot easier to go from that than just pure blank canvas. I think that's I agree with you completely. I think the narrative ones will suffer. But the otherwise creative ones, or the gameplay driven ones, how did he pull off that move? Oh, let's watch that again. Oh, right, he does it like that. I can now go back and try that. It's much more inspirational and aspirational, rather than somebody telling you the story, in which case it's spoilers. I didn't want to know that.
And the other thing to just be aware of is that most of the large Let's Players like Total Biscuit are paid to do their endorsements. It costs $20,000 to get your thing on Total Biscuit. And so just know that if you're going to try and go for this market at this point, become a market, right? You may get lucky and people may pick you up, but there's also a lot of indies out there who are just paying for this sort of coverage. So something to be aware of.
Also, whatever you do, when you promote something, make sure that you have Google Analytics on your website and stuff like that, because I mean, I've become addicted to just paying attention to what happens, because it's really interesting, because you learn a lot, even real time, to what's going on, and you make a couple of assumptions of how to reach out. So when we published our first teaser, for instance, we had a theory that, okay, so we had everything cross-linking between each other. So the green light would go to the YouTube would go to the green light, and to the Facebook page and everything, and we would just like pay attention to what happened. And as you know, just as an internal thing, we would just say, yeah, and post it on your Facebook. And by far, I think like 85% of our visitors, unique visitors to our website, came from Facebook.
People already in your own network. Yeah.
So that, you shouldn't underestimate that, especially when you're this early.
That's always a really, really happy, defining moment almost, when the Facebook page from your game gets more likes than the sum total of your friends lists. Yes, okay, this isn't just pity likes, that's not just mum.
Other questions?